Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 18th Bite Size Talk. Today's talk will be a follow-up of Bite Size number 11 and deals with more aspects of development environments and workflows. And we have Maxime Garcia from the Karolinska Institute and SciLife Lab in Sweden presenting. If you have any questions for Maxime during the talk, please feel free to put them in the chat in Zoom or on YouTube at any point during the talk. And I will read them out at the end of the session so that they can be answered by Maxime. So over to you, Maxime. We are looking forward to your talk.
Hi, thank you very much, Renuka. So, hi, this is Maxime. So today will be like a continuation of Phil's talk. So basically, I will explain what are my best practice for working, what are my configuration for Git and GitHub, and how I usually work with Git and GitHub, and how I work with the fork, the branch, and stuff like that. Basically, some tiny VS Code configuration, but not much, and some tiny local testing, but not much as well, because I think like both these were quite well covered by Phil, and my workflow is not that different than him on that side. So yes, that's my own workflow. So it's probably not the best, but it more or less works for me. So I think that's the important part for me. So I think like I want to encompass like what are like working best practice for me. And I think Phil was mainly focusing on coding. So for me, I spend like 20 minutes each morning, I think like on email and Slack at the beginning of the morning. And yes, we do have like a lot of message on Slack, and we do have a lot of email. So I would encourage people to use filter on the email so that you don't have all of the email. And for Slack, I recently discovered that you could have all in unread thing here that you need like to specify in your preference in the sidebar, and it will show you all the unread message. So that way it's very easy to see which message you have read or unread and stuff like that. And that it's very easy to go back to the channel by clicking here, or just to click to read the message here. So that way you really like keep track of which message you've been seeing, which message you have not seen, and everything. So that's fairly easy to do. And I really like that, and it can help you save some time. Apart from that, I think during the day, I try like to stand up at least 5 minutes, like every hour or so. So usually I go for a tiny walk to the kitchen. So yes, here, when I work at my place, my kitchen, I'm actually working in my kitchen. So the tiny walk might not be like that long. But if I'm at the lab, then yes, I can go like for a tiny walk inside the corridor, go grab a glass of water or coffee or whatever in the kitchen. And I think it's important to keep yourself, to do some tiny exercise and to do some stuff. Also, when I want to really focus on my coding, then the best is to avoid the distraction. So what I usually do at the time is that on Slack, I will mute all of my conversation, which can be done. I don't remember how it is. Okay, which you can do at some point. So you can mute all your conversation in Slack for some time. I also use friends for my social media, so for Twitter, and also to communicating with some of my friends and some other network. And you can directly disable all audio notification and all notification by a simple click. So that's fairly simple. And I would really recommend that when you're trying like to focus on some stuff. But most important, I think it's important to keep yourself some time to relax a bit. And for us in Sweden, I think going on a fika, which is our coffee break here, is actually quite a good idea. And which is what I try to do like from time to time. So let's go back to the slides. So then, yes, GitHub. So I will follow more or less what Phil explained, but with like some slight variation about how to set up your own fork on GitHub, configure your local clone, work on other people's codes, and pull in an update. So for me, I use GitHub command line. So when you're on, so for example, let's say that I already fork the pipeline. So as Phil do when I fork a pipeline, I append the name of the original repository, and I do that for all of my fork. That way, it's much easier to figure out where it's coming from. And if I want to check the code, what I do is I use the GitHub command line interface. I copy the command line interface, and I go to my workspace folder, and then I copy paste it. And it's already cloned. I think the good advantage about using the GitHub command line interface is that your remote is already configured. So you don't have to configure the upstream remote, so that way it's fairly easy. And I really do like that. So that would be what I do if I need to set up. Then if I'm doing some actual work, so I use ZSH on my terminal. So I know on which branch I'm actually in at the moment. So I know that I'm on dev. And when I'm working on a new feature, what I usually do is that git checkout -b. So I always use the name of the origin branch I'm working on, so the branch I will be forking, and then I add my new feature. So then I'm on this branch, I do the work on my branch. For example, let's modify some file. So VS Code. I'm on the RNA pipeline. I want to look at the changelog. Okay, let's remove line here. Oh, not enough. Okay, let's just do some tiny modification here. Okay, we are happy with the modification. So usually what I do when I modify a file, I do git add with the name of the file. And then I commit with the message fit update. That's it. So usually I append to my message fit if I did like an announcement on something, fix if I fix something, chores if I like, for example, updated like a tool or sync some stuff and stuff like that. So that's fairly simple and that's easy to do. And then if I want to push, where am I? Git push. I said git push origin. And that was my branch with the new feature, which is this one. That's all. My branch is already available on GitHub. And what you can even do with the GitHub command line interface is to automatically create your PR on the command line. So that's actually quite fun. And it could be very useful if you have to do like several PRs on different repository, like I had to do when I updated and removed the social media image on all of the pipeline. So you just specify the base branch you want to do it. That's it. You specify a title, which in our case will be just test. And you can also specify a body for the message. And if I do that, I'm creating. It's asked me where I want to do the repository. So I want to do that up, and then it's creating the pull request already, and it's already there, and I can check it already, and it's there. So I kind of like that because it's fairly simple and very easy. But of course, this one I don't want to merge. I'm creating it. Yes, so sorry for making pollution of this pipeline. I should have done that on the test dataset. Too late. So if I want to do some tiny modifications, then usually what I do is that I do that directly on using the GitHub interface. So for example, let's say I have something on the NF Core website that I want to update. So let's say about today event for the NF Core byte size. So I want to edit this file and I want to remove, let's say I want to remove the Zoom link, which we usually do at the end of the talk. So I just remove the Zoom link. I make a meaningful commit message. And I create a new branch in this commit. So here on GitHub, GitHub will automatically specify the new branch with your GitHub login and with patch 1 if it's the first time you do, and then patch 2 and so on. So usually I change and I make a branch that is related to what I'm currently doing at the moment. So here it will be byte size 18. Purpose change. Removing Zoom link for byte size 18. I want to ask a reviewer. A nice reviewer for this one will be Renuka. And then I create a pull request, and that's all. So you can also do a lot directly on the GitHub interface, and it's quite convenient. So depending on what I want to do, I will use either the GitHub interface or either the GitHub command line interface, which is also like convenient. If I want to keep the code up to date locally, so usually, for example, let's see here was my I usually do git status all the time to check if I have nothing to commit. So this is very like typical. Git pull to pull if there is like any update on that. There is nothing. And for me, usually I like to do like git fetch upstream and then git merge upstream dev, which is a bit of maybe complicated, but I know that I've done that like a lot in my history, and it's kind of ingrained into like me, and I just search like in the history for fetch, and I know it's there. So I do that. I can already fetch. I have a commit message that says, yes, I'm updating the branch, and it's done. It's already updated and everything is there. If I were to do git push, then it will push directly on the feature. So I can do that right now. So it will push. And now this branch will be up to date. But if I go to my branch of the NF Core RNA VAR pipeline, then I can see that it's not up to date because here I have fetch upstream, which is available. So what I do here is that I click on fetch upstream and fetch and merge. And that's all. Now my branch is even with NF Core Dev. You can also do that on PR, so that's quite useful, and I will really recommend people to use that because it's quite good to have your code up to date with the base branch. Okay, let's go back here. Yes, so that was that. I just did that. So for me, VS Code configuration, yes, best practice and useful plugin. Yes, so I'm using VS Code. Actually, I'm using Codium, not VS Code, but that's mainly the same. And the way I organize my VS Code is I have a big, or the way I organize my code, and the way I organize VS Code with my code is that I have a big workspace folder that is as the base of the workspace. And if I want to work like on like several different like repository at one time, for example, when I'm working on Sarek and I want to do some module, I want to do some test dataset, I want to do some config, I want to work on several stuff, then yes, for me, I have like this workspace with everything. But if I want to work just on one specific folder, then I will just open the workspace I want to work on. I don't have here any, but for example, in Sarek, I created one already and it's there. And then I know that I can really focus just on Sarek because I will have like, I will have just the code for Sarek and that's all. So that's just how I do it. I don't think you really need to do that, but that's how I like to do it. And I like to remove all the files that don't, oh, yes. I like to remove all the files that are not in the git ignore. So I remove everything. That's good. So yes, so for me, that will be what I usually do with VS Code. And I really try like to get rid of notification and try to mute everything. So that's why I really like try to be able to focus and just to be able to focus on just one project at a time if you need it. If you need differently, then of course do it differently. Then for the plugin, I don't have any particular recommendation because I usually I followed what was the recommendation. I think I followed first the recommendation from Alex. I think I first switched from, I think when I begin coding, I was using Notepad++. That was a long time ago. Then I think I switched to, I don't remember what was on, what was available then. But at some point I switched to Sublime Text, then I switched to Atom, and then I switched to VS Code as a lot of people. And yes, I think updating the plugin with that system is very easy. So I get all of this plugin, plus a couple of extra plugins, but nothing worth mentioning in this talk. So for me, local testing, so running tests locally, basically, I will do more or less the same that was Phil was doing. So for example, if I go in the Sarek pipeline, if I need to do my tests, then I will really run the test I'm doing. So at the moment, I'm working on some DSL2 branch. I'm working on annotation. So for the moment, the test that I'm running will be very specific to annotation. So I'm creating the test at the moment, and I'm updating and doing some development. So I already run the test beforehand, so it will be fairly fast to run. So I run just the command line to see if the command line is working. So for me, that will be it. And then I wait for Nextflow to start. Bring a bit of water. I can see that it's ongoing. Because I remove all of the work folder and stuff like that, Resume was not working, so it's ongoing. And it will be ongoing, there. For some more tests, especially, so this will be the test that will be shown off in the CI that we are doing on GitHub with the GitHub Actions. But since we talk with, I followed very closely what Edmund has been doing. We saw his talk last week, and I've been working on adding testing for specific sub-workflow or for the whole pipeline. So if I look here at my test, I can see that I can run the same test. Just separately with some specific tag. So if I want to run them on the command line, then I will go for PyTest. Oh, sorry. And I want the tag annotation if I want to run all of the tests. Otherwise, if I want to run just the snip effect or the VIP test, I can just specify them. And if I do just that, then it runs directly for me. I think to have that properly working, I added some profile information to my bash RC and stuff like that to be sure that it was specified with everything that was working well. But more or less, it's once you have like PyTest installed, it's fairly easy just to set up and to have it running on your own. And for me, whenever I need like to run the test, I will run first on the command line to make sure that it's working as I expect it to be working. And then I will run them on PyTest. That way I know that I can run like more tests at once using the specific tag that you want to run. And that way it's fairly easy. Oh. Yes, this was not exist. This doesn't exist. So annotation, and here it works just as well. So that's fairly good, and that's quite nice. And then yes, also to relax a bit and to change your mind, so you can like sometimes you have a bit of time difficulty focusing. I do listen to music quite often. I have my headphones, which blocks the noise. So this is quite good, but any headphone will do. And yes, I do listen to Spotify quite often. And we have a specific playlist that we made for the hackathon with some quite motivated music. So that was kind of nice. It's a collaborative one. So if you want to add more music, you can. We can also add that using Slack, but I think we will showcase that again for the next hackathon. So getting tuned for that. And that I think that's all. So I would like to thank all of my institutes that are helping me out. I would like to thank all of the different institutes that are involved into the NF Core organization. And I would like to thank all of the organizers, all of the contributors of NF Core. So if you need help a bit more about like GitHub contributions, there was Alex talk for the byte size number 4, a bit more detailed about the fields, development environment and workflows. That was byte size number 11, a bit more detailed about the byte size, about the PyTest workflow will be the previous byte size, which was the number 17. If you want to get involved into NF Core, if you want to join us on Slack, Twitter, GitHub, and YouTube, you can just click on the slide here, or you can just follow the link here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask now.
Thank you, Maxime. Yes, as Maxime mentioned, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be reading them out and he can answer them right now. And these slides will be made available to you as always. If you haven't done this already and you'd like to do this for all past talks, slides are available off our website. They are on Figshare. And so you can download them and use them, make them your own and present them in your communities. Okay, so I don't see any questions come up at this point on Zoom. And on YouTube either. So thanks again, Maxime. And before we end the session, there are a couple of announcements that I would like to make. We will be taking a break for summer and we will return with the series again on the 7th of September. So we will resume then. And we will have Harshil Patel presenting. We're also currently planning a special edition of Byte Size Talks, which will focus on pipelines. And these will be talks by developers of pipelines. So stay tuned. This is going to be exciting. I will be making an announcement about them soon, just as after we've got the first round of speakers lined up.